Good morning, I'm Mai Rodriguez sitting in for Mikey Oreta. And you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. The headlines. The Trump administration rescinds a memo that froze federal grants and loans, which created widespread confusion. The central bank says the inflation rate may breach the government's target this year if oil prices continue to rise. And a new survey reveals majority of Filipinos are satisfied with the Marcos administration's performance. First, let's take a look at how financial markets performed overnight. U.S. stocks ended lower on Wednesday as the Federal Reserve held interest rates steady as expected, and Fed Chair Jerome Powell offered soothing comments on the economy. Technology shares were the biggest drags on the S&P 500, with Nvidia and Microsoft among stocks leading the way down.
I think markets are actually breathing a sigh of relief post DeepSeek AI debacle that we saw over the weekend. Nvidia is down double digits. It's come back tremendously. I think a lot of folks were fearful for multiple stop losses to see in the market this week. So to only be down a little post-Fed for rates to rise today, we're sitting in a pretty decent seat for the market looking forward to be able to absorb earnings releases and new data and the administration pieces to come out in the future. So I think I would breathe a sigh of relief that it's not down a lot more than what it is today.
The S&P 500 lost 0.47%, while the Nasdaq Composite was down by 0.5%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.31%. European markets are still mixed. The UK's FTSE 100 was up by 0.28%. Germany's DAX also up by nearly 8%, while France's CAC 40 was down by 0.32%. The White House Office of Management and Budget on Wednesday rescinded a memo that froze federal grants and loans that created widespread confusion. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that while the earlier memo had been rescinded, the president's executive orders freezing foreign assistance and ending diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives remain in effect. The Trump administration had received a flood of calls from lawmakers and state officials with questions about its impact on their home states. The Philippine inflation rate may breach the government's target this year and in 2026 if oil prices continue to increase. This is according to the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, which explains if oil prices reach $90 per barrel, inflation may accelerate to 4.1% in 2025 and 4.4% next year. But if it shoots up to $100 per barrel, inflation may average to 4.5% this year and 4.7% in 2026. This is higher than the 2 to 4% inflation target of the government. The Philippines is on track to exit the Financial Action Task Force's gray list in February. This is according to the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. BSP Governor Eli Remolona explains the country is taking good steps to exit the list, but he did not give details. The watchdog previously said the Philippines has enhanced its anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism measures. These include the implementation of new registration requirements for money or value transfer services and sanctions against unregistered remittance operators. The Financial Action Task Force is an international organization that sets international standards to combat money laundering, terrorist financing, and other financial crimes. Incumbent Senators Amy Marcos and Francis Tolentino are out of the so-called Magic 12 in the latest Senatorial Preference Survey of the SWS. The presidential sister is in 14th place, while Tolentino is at the 15th spot. Some of the top spenders like Camille Villar and Benhur Abalos also failed to reach the top 12. But ACT CIS Party List Representative Erwin Tulfo still leads the survey. Former Senate President Tito Soto is now at second place, up from the 5th spot in the survey last December. Re-electionists Lito Lapid, Bongo, and former Senator Ping Lacson made it to the top 5. The Commission on Elections will look into poll-related surveys to see if these comply with preconditions set by the Supreme Court before they are released. Hanati reports.
A few months before the elections, various groups released surveys to gauge public opinion. These surveys often feature the leading candidates and their ratings. Sometimes, these results even become a basis for campaign strategies. Now, the Commission on Elections is reviewing whether these surveys should be monitored and regulated.
To a certain extent, nagkikreate kasi ng tendency at saka nai-influensyahan yung mga kababayan natin.
The COMELEC argues that many voters end up choosing candidates based solely on survey popularity. They will assess whether survey organizations comply with the Supreme Court's guidelines on publicizing such results. In 2001, the SC ruled that banning pre-election surveys is unconstitutional. But there are conditions for publishing these results. Survey conductors must be disclosed, including the survey date and how respondents were selected. The Supreme Court decision in the case of SWS versus COMELEC also mandates disclosure of data analysis methods.
So hindi naman tayo against, but we will now undergoing the review of the propriety of allowing survey firms to release the results if not compliant with the decision of the Supreme Court.
Dorothy does not trust surveys, but supports the Commission's move to regulate them. She is a first-time voter this May.
Kung yung post lang po is to based lang sa mga data from social media or public opinions is, I think, hindi po siya credible.
Luis also welcomed the COMELEC's plan. He urges fellow voters to research candidates carefully.
Siyempre, ma-ensure din na yung kung anong content ng survey, kung ano yung magiging kalalabasan ng survey, accurate sa kung ano talagang nasa loobin ng mamamayan po natin.
Some lawmakers share this view. For Manila 2nd District Representative Roland Valeriano, surveys are not always effective in campaigns. He believes they are mainly used for mind conditioning. When a candidate releases a survey months before elections, it gives incumbents time to catch up and strengthen their campaigns.
Ngayon pong 2 days before election, Sabado, Lunes sa election, pwede yan dahil ang intention mo, yung undecided, makuha mo. Meron ka pa isang araw, wala na akong panahon maghabol.
Although no specific survey was mentioned, he and Manila 3rd District Representative Joel Chua believe some online surveys may be fake news.
Kahit anong social media ang gawin mo, yung tama hindi magiging mali at yung mali never magiging tama. Lalabas at lalabas yung katotohanan yan.
Voters, they say, must study credentials of candidates and not rely on surveys.
Ang tunay na survey sa May 12. Diba? Yung May 12, yun ang magsasabi kung sino talaga ang lamang, kung sinong mananalo.
Hanati, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Over 59% of Filipinos are satisfied with the administration of President Bongbong Marcos. This is according to the survey from the social weather stations. The SWS says the current administration has a net satisfaction rating of plus 36, while 17% are neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, and 23% are dissatisfied with the performance of the government. The non-commissioned survey was conducted from December 12 to 18 with more than 2,000 adults nationwide. An AI model made by a Chinese firm has bested its American counterparts due to its low production cost. Soo Jin Kim tells us about a brewing global tech war.
A Chinese artificial intelligence company has jolted the tech industry and stock market. This comes after the Chinese company DeepSeek developed an AI model reportedly as proficient as ChatGPT, but at a lower cost and with fewer resources.
Shows that even if you have less money or limited access to the best AI chips, opportunities are still there. This also sends a message that the US should walk a tightrope.
According to DeepSeek, they spent only $5.6 million on computing power for their base model, compared to the billions spent by US companies on their AI technology.
Now, that $6 million is important because it's it's not a salary difference between the developers, American developers and Chinese developers, because DeepSeek claims that they were able to produce this AI model with only a handful of computer chips. Okay, so when you put that against something like Microsoft, who are planning to build a nuclear reactor just to power their data center that will power their AI, it really puts into perspective that perhaps we didn't need to spend so much money to achieve great things with AI.
Due to DeepSeek's unexpected success, the stock prices of several tech giants, including Nvidia, have plummeted, resulting in a market loss of approximately $1 trillion.
You're not just talking about Microsoft or Facebook or Google. You're even talking about utility companies. You're talking about manufacturing companies. You're talking about logistics companies. So, and that's why you saw, not just tech stocks sell off, but everything sold off, because everyone is kind of expected to participate in AI in some way. So, but just focusing on the tech stocks, right? Your big tech stocks, I do think they're still worth owning.
For U.S. President Donald Trump, American firms must strive and not be outdone by the Chinese.
The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser focused on competing to win, because we have the greatest scientists in the world. Even Chinese leadership told me that.
For some experts, DeepSeek is not just an AI breakthrough, but a new Sputnik moment, signaling a potential intensification of competition between China and the US in AI development.
AI is now the 22nd century arms race. Different countries are racing to develop AI models that are scalable, at the same time accessible through a wider range, without the high investments that have plagued companies such as ChatGPT or Google's Gemini.
This sort of arms race in AI is really, really moving fast, and a new company or startup seems to be launching something better every week. I think we should expect within the next week or the next month that your big players like Google, Facebook, Meta, or even a smaller startup in the US will probably come out with an even better model.
According to equity analyst William Cabangon, the widespread market sell-off is an overcorrection. While some investors are concerned in the short term, Cabangon believes this is positive in the long run, especially as AI becomes more accessible and cost-efficient. However, the public is still cautioned regarding more accessible AI, as this could lead to an increase in deepfakes or AI-generated scams.
The real question for the Philippines is now how do we become not only digitally literate, but also have critical thinking skills to ensure that we continue to fact-check information.
Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The Asian Development Bank, or ADB, approves a $500 million loan to the Philippines. This is to enhance the country's capacity to recover and withstand natural disasters and health emergencies. The loan is part of the ADB's Disaster Resilience Improvement Program, aimed to offset the economic and social impact of disasters. Last year, the Philippines was ranked as the highest in disaster risk globally by the World Risk Report, with 60% of its land vulnerable to natural hazards. We're taking a quick break. Stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and narratives that matter most to your bottom line. We're back on Business 360. Trading at the Philippine Stock Exchange opened earlier. Let's look at the initial figures. The main index currently trading at 61.39. Most sub-indices are in the red, led by Industrial, 0.4%. The all shares also down 0.09%. Financials, 0.3%. Holding firms, 0.15%, services down 0.39%, mining and oil also down 0.08%. Only the property sub-index is in the green, 0.7%. Gainers currently outpacing decliners, 71 to 62. Value turnover currently at more than 808 million. So far, 42 issues are unchanged. Meanwhile, at the foreign exchange market, the peso opened slightly weaker at 58.43 against the dollar compared to its previous close of 58.425. The U.S. Federal Reserve leaves the interest rate in the 4.25 to 4.50% range. The Fed explains this is due to uncertainty on the economic outlook, despite the balance on the risks of achieving its employment and inflation goals. Meanwhile, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell declined to comment on President Trump's remark that he will demand lower interest rates from the central bank. In other news, the Philippine espionage law is facing urgent calls for reform after authorities apprehended another suspected Chinese spy. Francis Falve has that story.
The country's espionage law is outdated. Former Supreme Court Justice Antonio Carpio says there is a need to update measures that are supposed to protect the country from spies. The existing espionage law in the Philippines, Commonwealth Act 616, was enacted in 1941.
We need to update our criminal laws. For example, under existing law, under the revised penal code, treason can be committed only during wartime. So, a Filipino who does this help the Chinese gather information vital for our national security cannot be prosecuted for treason. So we have to change our laws because iba na ngayon, no? We are now in the cyber age, and the Chinese don't have to send their people here. They can just send robots, drones to gather information, or use Filipinos here. So we have to update really a lot of our criminal laws, especially on national security.
National Security Council Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya says there are pending bills in Congress to amend the espionage law, but there might not be enough time to pass them before the current session ends.
This will be, again, part of the priorities of the National Security Council once Congress resumes its session sa June. No? So if this Congress, our focus was on the passage of the Maritime Zones Law and Archipelagic Sea Lanes, next year, ang ipupush namin is the amendments to the Espionage Act and the Foreign Malign Influence Act, no? Two very important pieces of legislation.
Key proposed amendments include making espionage a crime during peacetime as well. The law will apply to both Filipinos and foreigners. It will cover modern technology, including the use of drones, alongside photographic evidence. Penalties will be increased as the current fine is only 10,000 pesos.
These amendments are clearly very needed, given the fact that we are slowly uncovering a lot of intelligence operations being done by foreign states or foreign powers in the Philippines. And by doing so, we will be able to complete our defense system against them because we really need good legal foundations to be able to proceed forward.
The investigation into Dang Yuanqing, a Chinese earlier arrested for spying, is still ongoing. The NSC believes authorities have strong evidence against him.
Tinitingnan natin to how it connects to our geopolitical tensions that we're facing, no? Pati itong mga drones that were recovered in our seas, lahat yan, no? Over and above that, marami pang iba't ibang mga pangyayari.
Ang masasabi lang namin in reaction, of course, to what the Chinese embassy and the Chinese government said in Beijing is that this individual will have his day in court. Kaya nga natin final yung kaso. Diba? We filed the necessary cases for violation of the Espionage Act and the cybercrime law, and he will have his opportunity. But insofar as the government is concerned, we have a very solid case.
Malaya also confirmed that authorities have in custody 2 other suspected Chinese spies caught monitoring Navy and Coast Guard vessels in Palawan. They will be presented to the public in the coming days.
Marami tayong mga nahuhuli at marami pa tayong mahuhuli sa mga susunod na araw. So abagan po yan ng ating mga kababayan.
Authorities are now trying to determine whether these alleged spies work together and for whom. Francis Polbe, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, insists they do not oppose the passage of a wage hike bill. Labor Secretary Bienvenido Leguesma explains they just give technical inputs and lawmakers are the ones who can approve the legislation. His statement came after Speaker Martin Romualdez announced that the House of Representatives will push for the passage of a 200 peso daily minimum wage hike bill. The group Nagkaisa Labor Coalition welcomed Romualdez's support as the wage hike bill has been stalled in the Labor Committee since March. The group asserts it should be implemented nationwide. The Philippine economy expanded to 5.6% in 2024. This is according to data from the Philippine Statistics Authority. This is higher than the 5.5% recorded in 2023. The PSA attributes the expansion to annual growth in wholesale and retail trade, financial and insurance activities, and construction. We're taking a short break. Business 360 will be right back. Welcome back to Business 360. Former U.S. Senator Bob Menendez was sentenced to 11 years in prison. He was found guilty for taking bribes, including gold bars, in exchange for favors for Egypt and New Jersey businessmen. A U.S. district judge imposed the sentence at a hearing in Manhattan federal court following Menendez's conviction last July. The judge ordered Menendez to begin his prison term on June 6. Menendez, a once powerful Democrat who represented New Jersey for nearly 2 decades in the Senate, was found guilty in July on all 16 felony counts he faced, including bribery and fraud. He was also found guilty of acting as a foreign agent, a first for a U.S. senator.
Good afternoon. Regardless of the judge's comments today, I am innocent. And I look forward to filing appeals on a whole host of issues. But let me just say this. This whole process has been nothing but a political witch hunt by the Justice Department's NSD and prosecutors who are more interested in political scalps and preparing to run for public office like Damian Williams.
Two of America's biggest federal worker unions urge members not to trust a Trump administration offer to quit with 8 months' pay. In advice to its 800,000 members, the American Federation of Government Employees questioned the legality of the offer. They're also asking where the money will come from to make the payoffs and whether the administration will keep its word. The Trump administration has offered what it calls a deferred resignation program that would allow them to remain on the payroll through September 30th, but without having to work in person. The federal employees have until February 6 to decide whether to accept the offer. Trump has pledged to cut the size of the 2.2 million strong civilian workforce. Now, will you try this cow-free lab-grown cheese? A British startup called Better Dairy is creating cheese without relying on cows, offering the same taste but with a smaller environmental impact. We have this report.
It may stretch like cheese and taste like cheese, but would you try this product made without cow's milk? While there is vegan cheese on the market, a UK startup is hoping to take the animal-free cheese-making process to the next level.
Our benchmark of success is traditional cheese. We want products that taste, melt, stretch like the original that comes from a cow. The only difference in our case is that there is no cow involved and it's sustainable.
Better Dairy says its cheese has a lower environmental impact as it does not require methane-belching cattle or lush green pastures. The key is to make an animal-free version of casein, which is a milk protein that contributes to the taste and texture of cheese. Chief Scientific Officer David Nunn explains.
So animal-free, where we use precision engineering, precision fermentation to produce microbes that can produce the proteins and all the additional constituents that go to make up high-quality dairy products without the cow.
Founder and CEO Javan Nagaraja says that by programming microorganisms to produce casein, they can make a variety of dairy products. As much as 40% of global methane emissions may come from agriculture, but estimates vary. Nearly 3/4 of that comes from livestock and dairy. Methane is a potent greenhouse gas, about 25 times more effective than CO2 at trapping radiation, which causes global warming. Dairy production also consumes a vast amount of resources like land and water. Better Dairy is currently producing casein and another protein, osteopontin, at a lab scale, but the company is planning to increase production capacity and is in the process of navigating the regulatory landscape in target markets, including the US. They anticipate receiving approval for casein by 2028 and for osteopontin as an adult supplement by 2027.
And that's it for Business 360. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.